And this is Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services Talking Business, another episode of our interview series talking with leaders in the fields of banking, insurance, customer service, and data-driven marketing and business education, and all to highlight the efforts of our team in Harrison, New York at CBSI. Our company provides insurance-based benefits to the credit card and consumer banking industry, and our team has done a great job taking care of our clients and their customers during COVID-19. Now today, we have a good friend with us. That is Mark Rickard. Mark is the CEO, president of Rickard Squared, based in Haughpauge, Long Island, a data-driven marketing company, an attorney, and also an accountant by trade. And Mark, good to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ken. Thanks very much for having me on again. I really appreciate it. Always good to connect with you.
Well, always appreciate it. You do a lot of great support of the trade, the Hudson Valley Direct Marketing Association, Direct Marketing Club of New York. Now, Mark, maybe you could just highlight what has the last 3 months been like for you since the world changed, business changed, the economy changed so much in early March this year.
What happened the last 3 months? Yeah, craziness. And marketers always talk about disruption, right? And dealing with disruption. I can't imagine any of us thought that we'd be disrupted as much as we have, but it's certainly been a shock to the system. I can't help thinking that we probably should have been more prepared for it generally, whether we should have seen the virus coming earlier or should have recognized the economic impacts it was going to have on all of our businesses sooner. I don't know, but look, like everybody else, it's waking up every day and figuring out how to, keep things as normal as they can possibly be. And in addition to being a marketer servicing my clients and trying to anticipate their needs and, figure out how this is all affecting them, I'm also a small business owner, right? So I'm thinking about my people and keeping them employed and the logistics of getting things done and making sure that for appearance sake, it looks like there's been no hiccups in the way that we've been able to do business. So I think we've done a good job. I don't think it's over yet. And, I try to wake up with a smile on my face and take it for what it is.
And how big an adjustment was it for you? I noticed we talked to some consumer bankers, and they said part of their regulatory requirements was to have a pandemic plan, which served them well. We talked to B&B Bank out on Long Island. Kevin O'Connor talked about the efforts they made and being able to help their customers with things like the payroll protection plan. How is it just to be able to make that switch in managing a company and managing a data company when you have to work remotely?
Yeah, so lucky in a couple of respects. We have a number of people that were working remotely already because they weren't anywhere near our Haughpauge office. So our systems were equipped for people to, dial in and connect and, run things remotely. The rest of us fortuitously had gone to sort of a laptop environment in the last 3 or 4 months. And so we just picked up and went home, plugged in. So that was good too. I have been back to the office a number of times, but I think from the perspective of technology and systems, we were pretty prepared for it, although I can't look at you with a straight face and tell you we had a pandemic plan. We didn't. But we are nimble, I guess, and most small companies are. You mentioned Bridgehampton Bank. I mean, I think they did a great job. I have a lot of people who use them as their primary bank, and they were really good with PPP. We talk about this all the time as marketers. Communication was key for us, right? Not only with our clients, but internally, right? So if we were all going to be at home, now how are we going to connect with each other? So Zoom or Microsoft Teams or all of the platforms that allow you to connect more frequently have been vital to us. Plus, we've had, periodic all hands on deck Zoom meetings or Microsoft Team meetings where we engage. What happened this week? What are your clients seeing? Are the orders coming in you thought were coming in? Where are the pain points that our clients are having? How do the successes of some clients allow us to help others who maybe aren't quite as ahead of the curve? So communication, connection's been integral.
You mentioned that Bridgehampton Bank B&B at Long Island, Kevin O'Connor's organization, had been very helpful. We've kind of talked to some of the, actually some of the members of the Independent Community Bankers Association about how they were able to help many small businesses with payroll protection plan and some of the other government benefits. How did you see that working? Did you feel like the government efforts have been successful in helping people through the situation?
So there was a lot of communication. I'm a decent client for them. I have a banking relationship, so being able to talk to them and make sure that they knew what I needed and I knew what they wanted made it very easy for me to apply and receive the PPP money that I needed. In terms of the sort of effectiveness of that, you know, I kept my people employed, right? So that was the point of it. And, you know, I haven't laid anybody off. I don't know whether that's going to be, you know, forever, but certainly I use the PPP money to keep everybody employed and to operate business as usual for as long as I can. So I think it worked really well. You know, as a matter of, I guess, practicality, there couldn't or wasn't a need basis for the PPP. I'm sure there were companies that were doing fabulously well during you know, during the quarantine that probably didn't need the PPP money, but as a practical matter, it worked really well for me. And as the Bridgehampton Bank example illustrates, the idea of having a community bank with a relationship person who you can pick up the phone and talk to made that whole process a lot easier.
Well, certainly a very important effort by the local bankers that we've seen. Last week, we had a chance to listen to our friend Bruce Biegel from the Winterberry Group,
Sure.
who spoke to the Direct Marketing Club of New York, and he annually gives a presentation on trends in communication spending at the macro level, and went over a lot of statistics because basically everything he had told us in January is out the window. You know, he talked about a 30% decrease in GDP for second quarter, but that it would be rebounding balance of the year. 380% increase in mobile traffic in second quarter. What were some of the other key statistics that or impressions that you had from Bruce Biegel's talk last week?
Well, after you sort of, you know, processed all the parade of horribles that he put out there, you know, as you mentioned, the COVID-19 and the GDP and the unemployment and Black Lives Matter and all the things that sort of are disrupting us and shocking us daily. You know, his insights as to the direction that marketing was going in and sort of the pivot, and that's a word that a lot of people are using, the pivot that everybody has had to make to figure out where to get to next. You know, it's clear that it accelerated the transition to digital. I think it's ultimately going to hurt more traditional channels of marketing, even more so than they have been. But like 2008, it's going to take a step forward. I was surprised. I think the direct mail statistic he said it was down like 50 to 60%. We haven't seen that, maybe because most of our clients aren't in the space that's necessarily been as affected as much as you know, as some of these other sort of industries. Email, I thought that was interesting that email was flat, but that there was some pressure on pricing. So it makes sense, right? So if you're a B2B marketer, you can't send something by direct mail to somebody at their office anymore because they're not at their office. So you're more likely to engage with them over email. So we've seen an increase in the demand for email, which we've never been particularly fond of as an acquisition vehicle. But, you know, think about the practical realities of life now. We're all sitting in our homes, staring at our email all day. I would argue that direct mail it should have seen a tick up, if only because I know now when the mailman shows up, I'm not throwing it on my kitchen counter at the end of the day. I'm seeing it, I'm going out and getting it, maybe I'm engaging with it, you know, in a different way. But look, I think he hit all the right notes. That this is going to accelerate change, that there are going to be some industries that are going to hurt worse than others. Look, if you're in the travel and hospitality space right now, or event space or sports space, you know, entertainment generally, you're in a rough, you're going to go through a rough patch. But you know, what recovery means and when it's going to happen and what the factors are that are going to play into, you know, this fourth quarter potential increase, you know, I don't know. He had a very, it was obvious that a lot of thought had come into it, and that he had, you know, that Winterberry, as always, had done a good job of sort of trying to map out what is increasingly a pretty scary landscape. And a note about the Direct Marketing Club in New York, to those who are watching this now, they've done a great job of engaging their membership, I think, during these times, having their weekly meetings. And the Hudson Valley Direct Marketing Association is about to do the same, resurrect sort of their luncheon series with the same type of virtual content.
Well, that's so important. You mentioned that you work with a lot of trade associations around the country who are trying to switch to doing online events, online conferences, online weekly or monthly events to keep in touch with their members, building virtual engagement. What are some of the successes that you see? What are some of the ways that that you can make online conferences or weekly events successful?
Well, I think the most obvious answer to that is that if you're giving a trade show now, or you have an event, you know, you would normally have required people to fly to Chicago and get a hotel and you know, register for the event and attend the sessions. And, you know, that's, by virtue of the expense, generally going to limit the amount of people that you're going to have engage with your content. But now, you know, you're effectively opening your content up to anybody that has a laptop and wants to engage with your content. I went to a virtual conference 2 weeks ago, the International Franchising Exposition, which had a virtual exhibit hall, and you could go on and stop at somebody's booth and engage with them, and you know, really remarkable stuff. I'm working right now with a large healthcare system in the region who historically put on events clustered around a certain topic, and medical professionals from all over the country would attend their events. They can do it all virtually now. So now they want data related to healthcare professionals, because they can put on their events not only for medical professionals in the region or people who would be likely to have the kind of budgets to attend, but also nationally for people who, you know, might otherwise not to fly across the country. I do a lot of work in the association space, especially in education, and they're hurting because it's a revenue source for them to put on a conference that has thousands of attendees. And how do you, you know, how do you replace that revenue? I'm not sure you do, but as you said, and as Bruce said last week, the idea here is to create these virtual connections, to leverage the content you have just in a different medium. And I think the opportunities are there. I also would like to mention, I think I should, you know, fundraisers, you know, they put on events all the time. Those are huge, you know, parts of their, you know, annual appeal. You know, I'm not going to go to many golf outings this year. I'm going to donate. I'm not going to go to any galas. I'm going to donate. But pivoting and being able to engage your members and non-members to give in a time where you don't have an event is going to be difficult for them as also.
Well, certainly it's so tough on everyone who depends on, as Bruce Biegel talked about, experiential marketing, getting people together for different events, whether they business, golf outings, or fundraising. Dinners.
But I will say, Ken, that I feel like people are getting together virtually in a way that maybe they might not have otherwise. Personally and professionally, I find myself, find it easier to just sort of have a virtual happy hour with a client or a group of clients when it would have otherwise required me to go into the city or go visit them at their offices in Iowa or St. Louis. Now I can sit in front of a screen and we have, a nice hour together where we have a gin and tonic and talk about what we're all going through personally and professionally. And I think there's a community of spirit that can be leveraged in this time, because this isn't just happening to one person, it's happening to everybody.
Yes, I've really enjoyed a couple of the social Zoom gatherings where with different trade group members, just talking about what they've been working on, how they've been getting through this unprecedented event. Now, Mark, Rickard from Rickard Squared, you work actively in the data business, and one of the overriding concerns in recent years has been privacy and compliance with the regulatory law that came from Europe and the one that came in from California. And several states in the United States are coming up with their own privacy laws, and there's been a move to do something federally that would preempt some of the state laws. But now everything's really been on hold, and we see consumers using vast amount of online data and signing up for different programs, apps. What do you see happening with the whole idea of privacy during this period?
So I don't think the way we're approaching privacy, or that any good faith marketers of approaching privacy has changed at all. I mean, the only thing that sort of is interesting is that we were all looking at the beginning of July as sort of the effectiveness date for CCPA, the California Privacy Act. And, frankly, we're all caught up in the tyranny of the urgent, which is COVID-19 and wading through this, that it just doesn't seem as important to us, which is not to say that we don't all have our ducks in a row and we all aren't compliant. It's just that it just doesn't feel as critical maybe as it might have been. I don't think consumers are going to change the way they feel about privacy. Maybe they'll even be more protective of their rights, given the fact that they're spending more time in an online environment, transacting business and doing things online. You look at the e-commerce numbers and how they've gone through the roof. I don't know about you, but we didn't get an Amazon package for 2 days, and the UPS driver knocked on our door to make sure we were okay. So we're all doing it, and I think the good actors, like I said, are going to take privacy seriously, because we're moving, I think, to more of a direct-to-consumer environment. So big brands are going to want to talk directly to their consumers. Retail is going to continue to be stressed. The malls, I think Bruce mentioned the other day, malls disappearing. So as we go to this direct-to-consumer environment, we're collecting all this information about the people who are engaging with our brand and buying things from us. We have to be cognizant of the role that privacy plays. It's just that we're, the gorilla in the room is coronavirus and how that affects, everything else, so that, it might appear as if privacy's taken a back seat, but those of us who are, embedded in the industry, are making sure we do the right thing regardless.
And Mark, Rickard, maybe you could mention a little bit about the services of your company. You work, in this whole area of big data, which has grown so much with mobile, in recent years. And I know you work with your clients on customer acquisition and monetizing data for them, and effectively using data. Tell us a little bit about some of the services, some of the verticals that you mentioned, healthcare, and you mentioned associations, some of the verticals also that you serve.
Sure, thank you, Ken. So we're a data-driven direct marketing agency. We leverage third-party data for customer acquisition and retention. I heard somebody say yesterday, it might have been Ruth Stevens in an article or something, that retention is the new acquisition in this market. You know, keeping customers is every bit as important as getting new ones. But you know, data plays an important role there. So we continue to work with clients of all sorts to you know, optimize the first-party data they have and to tap into third-party data sources that allow them to get in front of their target market effectively. We've always been, as I've said to you before, I think channel agnostic, so direct mail, email, mobile, social, display, wherever you think your customer engages, we can provide data solutions that tap into that. And we're primarily a broker in that we, you know, we're using all of the data sources that are available to us to bring value to your brand. We're lucky. Consumer publishing is a big niche for us, and those guys during this crisis have seen a serious uptick in engagement online. Look, people are home with less to do. They're not going out, so subscribing to a magazine or engaging with content, video or otherwise online is up. I think up like 40% for most of these publishers. And you know, the problem they're having is getting advertisers, because you know, advertisers are, you know, they don't know what to do. They don't know the messaging. They don't know what to be doing during this time. AAA, the American Automobile Association, through an agency partner of ours, is a large client of ours, and they seem to have, you know, worked through this. Makes sense, right? People aren't getting on airplanes and flying places, so maybe we're going to be taking a lot of driving vacations this summer. It's, I think, you know, going to play an important part in their messaging going forward. We have some B2B marketers, Pitney Bowes. They are emphasizing the solutions that they offer for somebody who's working from home that doesn't want to go to the post office. So they have an online shipping and mailing solution. So whether you're somebody that has a e-commerce business that you're operating out of your home, or somebody that's been forced to be working from home because of the lockdown, you know, they've been pretty good about marketing their solutions to this whole market of people who are from home. We don't have a lot in the travel and hospitality sector other than AAA. We have a lot in the education sector, and that's troubling because, you know, what's school going to look like, right? Can you market to teachers? Can you market to superintendents and school district administrators when they don't even know what, you know, 2020, 2021 school year is going to look like? On the other hand, if you're marketing for the distance learning segment, people are going to go to college online, you know, even more so than they ever did before, because they don't want to congregate at campuses or pay that kind of money for what is effectively just distance learning from major institutions. Pharma and healthcare exploding, you know. I had a lot of inquiries from the kinds of companies that serve the healthcare market, whether they're disinfecting offices or whether they're providing kits or the types of equipment that healthcare professionals need to keep safe. Those guys obviously are spending money. We talked before you started recording about you know, what we're spending our money, at least I'm spending my money on. It's things around the house, right? You know, I heard you can't buy a pool, above ground or otherwise. Inflatable, you can't buy one right now. You can't even find them. Patio umbrella, you can't find. A fire pit, you can't find. You know, my landscaper said he can't find grass seed or fertilizer because everybody's focused on their own lawn. So the stay-at-home amenities, if you will, are the ones that are gonna be incredibly valuable, during these times. So
certainly the growth of e-commerce, taking care of home improvement, and one of the things Bruce Biegel was talking about, the amount of video people are watching, and video games have exploded as a cultural phenomenon. And actually, we've been watching for some of the sports league I'm involved with, esports is growing significantly. In fact, they were broadcast on, I think it was NBC television when there wasn't anything else to broadcast. They were broadcasting esports competitions. So
yeah, I broke down and watched the Korean baseball league. A couple of my team is the LG Twins, because LG is a client of mine, and they're all the Korean teams have their own corporate sponsors. So like Samsung has a team and LG has a team, and so I'm a fan of the LG Twins. But I thought one of the interesting things Bruce said also was about apparel, right? So the apparel industry, even though you can buy apparel through e-commerce, everybody's wearing the same sweatpants and t-shirt and flip-flops. There's no need to go out and buy new shirts and ties and trousers and jeans, because we're not going anywhere. And we might not for another 6 months in a meaningful way. So I can imagine that's all really has a negative effect on the big apparel companies.
I know. I think I've had 2 interviews that I've done during the stretch where I wore a sport coat for them. One was a member of Congress, and anyway, Mark Rickard, who is the CEO and president of Rickard Squared out in Haughpauge, Long Island, and a very dedicated supporter of the Direct Marketing Club of New York and the Hudson Valley Direct Marketing Club, 2 very long-standing trade organizations that grew up in direct marketing and direct mail, and now are leading forces in digital marketing and data-driven marketing. Mark, do you have a final thought for us today?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on what you said about getting involved with your, sort of trade associations and industries. I think in the age we're in right now, which who knows how much longer it'll last, and maybe it'll just change the way we interact with each other forever. But this idea of communication and engagement and connection and sharing of information among your peers and your colleagues, I think is as important as is forever. There's content I'm consuming through my organizations or otherwise online that you wouldn't think maybe would have that much of an interest or a relevancy to what I do, but there's always something that comes out of it that intrigues me and is something I can use in my business. And I will say that the great companies, and I won't for this purpose lump my company into that, but the great companies take these times of upheaval and transition and convert them into opportunity and make something of it. And I think that it's all incumbent on us not to get caught up wringing our hands and figuring out how we're going to get through the next week or two, but figure out how we're going to take the great leap forward and anticipate what the world's going to be like when we're beyond this. So that's it.
I think Bruce Biegel talked to that point about in his conclusion that he said, you don't think about coming back to the reopening with the company that you had, but think about what is the company that you need, what is the technology needs, what are the agency creative needs that you have.
Listen to your clients, listen to your customers. Make sure you really absorb the direction that they're going in, and think about the role you're going to play. Very
good. Mark Rickard, so good to chat with you as always, CEO, President, Rickard Squared. Great to hear your thoughts on the economy and this unprecedented COVID-19 situation and reopening, and thoughts on the data industry. Really good to chat with you today, Mark.
Always, Ken. Thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. And this is Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services based in Harrison, New York. Our company provides insurance-based benefits and customer service management to the credit card, consumer banking industry. And always shout out to our team that's done a great job during this COVID-19 period and always taking care of our clients and their customers. So again, thank you to Mark Rickard. And for CBSI Services, this is Ken Kraetzer. Have a great day, everybody.